Hi, I'm Pattu from FreeFinCal. In this video, let's compare aggressive hybrid mutual funds with diversified equity mutual funds and ask which is better. So, what are aggressive hybrid funds? We will only look at there are many types of hybrid funds, but the aggressive hybrid funds are those that will invest a minimum of 65% or 70% in equity, and much of it will be in direct equity. That is, the arbitrage exposure or the derivative exposure will be less. So they'll be investing in about 65-70% in stocks, and the rest will be in bonds. Typically, some portion will be in arbitrage, but not too much. They differ from the balanced advantage funds in that the balanced advantage fund will tactically change its asset allocation, whereas the aggressive hybrid fund will not change its asset allocation tactically, but will only rebalance the portfolio every month. So I have a video on aggressive hybrid versus balanced advantage funds. You can have a look at that. I will link it either here or in the description box. But for today's video, we'll only look at the aggressive hybrid funds, and we're going to compare them with the diversified equity funds. Diversified equity funds typically mean any equity fund which has got about anywhere between 90-95% in stocks, and it has got only about 5-10% in bonds or a little bit of cash to handle redemptions and so on. Typically, diversified equity funds, the definition of diversified equity fund will exclude sectoral funds, because the diversification will be typically across sectors and across market cap. Sectoral funds are also diversified in the sense that they are diversified across market cap in a particular sector. So, but typical definition, diversified funds will exclude sectoral funds or thematic funds as they are called. So, we're going to compare these two. And straight off the bat, let me tell you that I have done several videos on comparing passive funds and active funds. And the biggest problem with a diversified equity fund, like a large cap fund, mid cap fund, large and mid cap fund, multi cap fund, the biggest problem is that because slowly index investing options are increasing for investors and index investing is gaining popularity, the investor is likely to compare the performance of a diversified equity fund with an index fund and ask, oh my God, if my fund is not able to beat an index like the Nifty Next 50, should I not be invested in the Nifty Next 50 or the Nifty 100, whatever, depends on what or any mid cap index or whatever. So the question is, people then ask, why am I paying a fee for active fund management when the fund manager is not able to beat an index? And that possibility is becoming higher and higher because only half the funds typically are able to outperform the index over any given period, and I have shown that in several videos and several of my posts. This problem is by construction absent in an aggressive hybrid fund, because first of all, we do not have an aggressive hybrid index fund. We should, but we do not. Second, an aggressive hybrid fund contains equity and bonds, so we cannot, as an analyst, we cannot compare an aggressive hybrid fund with a large cap index or a market weighted index. That comparison does not make sense. But even if we do compare as an investor, we are okay because we are guaranteed a one thing in an aggressive hybrid fund: lower risk. So the real question is, aggressive hybrid funds have lower risk, but do they provide any kind of reward which is comparable to a diversified equity fund? So let's look at that. I have written about this from time to time, and it's one of my favorite post topics. And personally, my equity portfolio is built around a aggressive hybrid fund. I use aggressive hybrid funds for both my retirement and my child's future need goals. So this is a graph. Before I begin, I'm making videos every day that I forget what topics I've covered and what topics I have not covered. I am assuming that I have not covered this before. If in case I have, please excuse me. I've tried searching the channel, and it doesn't look like I've covered it. It's becoming difficult to keep track if I keep posting every day. Anyway, so let's look at the result. So in the horizontal axis is the standard deviation over 5 years, and in the vertical axis is the return over 5 years, and every kind of mutual fund is being mapped here. And we have, so the yellow dots are the ones that we want. They are the aggressive hybrid funds. All other dots represent the diversified equity fund. For example, the blue dots are large and mid cap. The open pink dots are large cap. The white dots are mid cap. The closed pink dots are multi cap. The open pink circles are banking funds. I've used sectoral funds also. The open white rings are infra funds. Open green rings are small cap funds, and the value oriented funds are the green dots, and so on. So the comparison is essentially between the yellow dots, which are the aggressive hybrid funds, versus all the other dots. And my argument is quite simple. I look at this window over which the aggressive hybrid funds are given returns over 5 years. This is the spread. Typically, 1 or 2 funds are outside, but that's a typical spread. If you look at that, look at the return here. The returns of the aggressive hybrid funds are comparable to the most of the funds from other categories. Some small cap funds, many small cap funds will be outside, but that's acceptable because you're looking at a period where the small caps have increased and so on. This was done a few months ago, so before much of the small caps fell down and so on. Some sectoral funds are outside, but that's okay. But many of the multi-cap, like the multi-cap funds, large and mid-cap, large cap, mid-cap, they're all there in that band. And notice that the aggressive hybrid funds are able to provide a comparable return, but in the x-axis, notice that they fall lower. That is, the y-axis is the return. The returns are comparable, and in the horizontal axis, the risk is lower. So at lower risk, they are able to give you a comparable return compared to the diversified funds. So there's really no, it's a no-brainer. They are much better. Now, this is a graph that was published in May 2015. And this is a graph of the 12-year return versus, for those 12 years, there are 12 annual returns. I've calculated the standard deviation or the volatility in those 12 annual returns. That's in the horizontal axis, and in the vertical axis is the 12-year CAGR. So I have 12 annual returns. I have calculated the volatility of those 12 annual return data points. That's in the x-axis, and the y-axis shows you the 12-year CAGR over the 12-year period. And again, notice that look at the equity funds there. I have not classified them into large cap, multi cap, and so on. But most of the equity oriented funds, they are called equity oriented funds now, equity oriented balance funds. Now they are called aggressive hybrid. So most of the aggressive hybrid funds essentially again offer a risk which is significantly lower than this. Look at the spread in risk in this. Significantly lower risk, but comparable reward. That's the, so again it's a no-brainer. So that was almost 3 years ago. I have redone this graph just for this video, and this is the, this is it. Again, the same X and Y axis as before. Again, you can see that the aggressive hybrid funds have given you lower risk, not too low risk. Don't assume low risk means not like a debt mutual fund kind of risk. It's still risky, but it's guaranteed. You get a guaranteed lower risk of that much, of at least 5, let's say 5% on average, a 5% lower risk, but the reward is comparable. And so it's really a no-brainer that you should be using aggressive hybrid funds as the core component in your portfolio. The rest of it, the satellite component, you can have a mid-cap fund just for kicks or a small cap fund for kicks. It doesn't matter. The biggest advantage, if you want to become an index investor, there's no problem. You choose a blend of Nifty 50 and Nifty Next 50. That is one style of investing. You are not worried about downside protection. You go the index investing route. If you want to remain an active investor, then it's an absolute no-brainer that you should be building your core portfolio around an aggressive hybrid fund, and you can have a Nifty Next 50 as a satellite component, as a satellite mid-cap fund, or you can have a little bit of small caps, however way you want to play it. So that's what I'm been saying. The answer is obvious. Aggressive hybrid funds offer similar returns at a guaranteed lower risk compared to diversified equity funds. This justifies the expense ratio because of the active management. I know because of the fixed income component and because the fund manager is rebalancing every month, there is some work being done other than active stock selection. So I understand, okay, you have to pay the guy a little bit more than an index fund, and you will not worry about underperforming the index, because you are not supposed to compare an aggressive hybrid fund with Nifty 50 or Nifty Next 50. That's not the job of the aggressive hybrid fund. Is not supposed to beat those kind of indices. They have their own hybrid indices. Whether they are able to beat it or not is another matter. They are able to beat it. It's not so difficult. But the point is, psychologically, we will not be looking at, we will not be expecting an aggressive hybrid fund to beat Nifty 50 or Nifty Next 50. Therefore, in our minds, we are justifying the expense ratio, even if it is not, even if it is not quantitatively, at least psychologically, it's a good justification. And it's okay, you're paying the guy for managing that equity and bond portfolio. And that's quite fine. And you're guaranteed of lower risk, and you get similar reward to diversified funds. So it's a no-brainer. If you like a low volatility portfolio, build it around an aggressive hybrid fund. If you don't care much about volatility and you are worried about tracking fund performance, and you want to build a low-cost portfolio, choose index investing. So if you have any questions, leave them below. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you in another video. Bye-bye.